hostages, and that gives it still some leverage.
Paul Adams joining us from Jerusalem. Thank you. Let's stick with that thought of the leadership of Hamas, because as the Israeli military moves deeper into Gaza, one of its main objectives is to kill or capture the leaders of Hamas. That includes this man, Yahya Sinwar, said to be the mastermind for the October 7th attacks. Israel's defense minister has said he's hiding in a bunker in Gaza City. IDF military leaders have called him a dead man walking. Well, let's cross live to Jerusalem and speak to Seth Frantzman, adjunct fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies and an expert on Iran-backed terrorism. And with regards to Yahya Sinwar, what do we know about him and what do we know about his significance?
Well, he's someone that was in prison in Israel for 2 decades. He was already known in the 1980s as a very brutal man who spent a lot of time murdering what they considered in Gaza people that were collaborating with Israel. So he was already known as someone who was willing to use his own hands to kill people. And when he was released, he took several years. He was released in the Shalit deal in 2011. He took several years to climb the ranks to basically control Hamas in Gaza in 2017. And what we know now from the attack in October 7th is that he masterminded a massive attack that killed around 800, 900 Israeli civilians and kidnapped 240. So his career is clearly the extreme far right of what Hamas has produced historically.
And that deal you mentioned there was when Israel released 1,000 or so Palestinians in return for one Israeli soldier. And I just want to pick up, if we can, on the comments that we just heard there from our correspondent in Jerusalem, saying that there are many senior leaders potentially in southern Gaza or elsewhere in the rest of the world. With that in mind, how can Israel try to defeat an ideology when many of the key players may not be in Gaza City?
Well, I think first of all, to hand them a tactical defeat on the battlefield, to show that they can't win, that they can't draw Israel into some sort of Vietnam-like quagmire, that they can't kill huge numbers of Israeli civilians again or soldiers. Obviously, that would be a defeat, I think, and they would see it that way. But we have to remember, as you just noted, a lot of their leaders are abroad, and their leaders seem to be scheming in the region, not just with Iran, but also through visits to Turkey, and also some of them live in Qatar. They seem to be scheming to basically find a way after the battle in Gaza, to find a way into the West Bank or to ride this wave of support that they seem to have gotten after October 7th. So certainly they will try that with one hand while Israel tries to, destroy them tactically and militarily with the other hand.
With regards to the situation we're seeing in the last few hours, these reports of attacks in and around hospital vicinities, what do you expect to see in the coming days?
Well, Israel has sent 3 divisions into Gaza and has kind of cut the strip. It's a small area, but cut it in 2 so it can surround Gaza City. I think Israel would like to go in slowly, but kind of block by block, to reveal all the Hamas tunnels. They've already found a lot of weapons factories, drone factories, rocket launch sites that are in civilian homes and things. So I think they want to reveal the extent of the terrorist infrastructure that kind of honeycombs everything underneath the city and exploits these civilians. And then I think once they've apparently finished with that, the idea will be to concentrate on southern Gaza, where most of the civilians are, and whereas, you noted, it's possible that many of these Hamas leaders or some of the hostages are as well. But by cutting it in 2 and kind of containing it, they're able to control the situation better.
A lot of the actors in this region, Houthi rebels, Hezbollah, Hamas, operate with the backing of Iran. Now, Iran said it had no involvement in the preparational planning of October the 7th, but obviously it will be watching intently. It will be having some involvement in how people like Hezbollah respond on the northern border with Israel. What do you think Tehran is thinking and what it's planning to do next?
I think it's clear that Tehran and Iran was not surprised by this attack, which would lead us to believe that probably they did know somehow that it was eventually coming. Maybe they didn't know the exact date. But from the moment that Hamas attacked on October 7th, we've seen that Iran has been able to key in Hezbollah attacks basically every day since then, and then the Houthis in Yemen, and then there have been 40 to 50 attacks on U.S. forces in Syria and Iraq by Iranian-backed groups. So it's clear that Iran is sort of playing the region like a terrorist piano, keying in whichever group it wants on any given day. And every day there are attacks. Yesterday there was a drone that went all the way from Syria and flew into a school in Eilat which is, I think, 2,000 or more kilometers. So clearly Iran, is behind a regional effort. And we've seen evidence of that in Arabic media that is pro-Iranian, where they say, Iran is cooperating with Hamas. Hezbollah, is supporting Hamas. The Houthis in Yemen have a joint operations room to support Hamas. It's clear that these groups are knit together.
Seth Frantzman joining us from Jerusalem. Thank you. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.